This NFL Week 8 Thursday Night Football Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has just added Pick'em Scorchers where you can win 100x. That's right, turn $5 into 500 in one game. Plus, every Sunday they're giving away 100,000. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $500. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month and start making smarter bets today. Plus, NBA is back, and so is the NBA Gambling Podcast. To celebrate, we're giving away a NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA dog for all the details. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Wednesday, October the 25th, currently 1:37 on the East Coast, here to get into the NFL Week 8 Thursday night football game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. And joining me here to help me break it all down, you guys know him as one of the hardest working men in the sports betting industry, the motor sports king himself. It's Rod Villagomez. Rod, how's it going this Wednesday afternoon, my friend?
It is
morning for you. Sorry.
It is morning. So cheers to everybody out there as my cup of coffee is ready to go. I'm ready. I love this time of year. Obviously, there's so much going on, and with NASCAR winding down, I can almost fully put my attention toward football 100%. But I'm ready to rock. I can't wait for this. Always look forward to this opportunity to talk with you guys and talk football props.
Yeah, another week in the books here for the NFL. We're already on to NFL Week 8. It feels like it's flying by. But also joining me here to help me break it all down as well. Also one of the hardest working men in the sports betting industry. Got my co-host for the NBA Propcast here. It's Chris B. Captain. Chris, what's going on, my man?
What's up, Munaf? We got another Thursday slate of football, man. So I'm excited. Well, not a slate, but a game. And I'm not sure if this is going to be a good game or not. Based on recent performance, maybe, right? Because we got a team that is playing, well under expectation, and we got another team that, we just don't know what we're going to get out the Bucs on a weekly basis. So excited to break it down, like Rod said. Kind of give out some winners, talk it out with you guys, give out some looks, and looking forward to this week in NFL as well. Like Rod said, it's a hectic time of the year for sure when you got NBA trying to get integrated back. And, we don't have to go through all the sports, but it's a lot going on. Excited as always, to be able to watch these sports and be able to contribute to the show. So let's get into it,
I'm glad you said that, though, Chris. I really am, because I tell you what, I was thinking to myself, is there a game that I'm the least excited about in the entire world than this Thursday night game? I honestly, if it were not for props to keep us involved, I don't know that I'd even want to watch this game as a fan.
Yeah, I think definitely down the list for me as well, especially with NBA here. But got a little break from MLB since the World Series Game 1 doesn't kick off until Friday. But so maybe I'll tune in a little bit and see how the Buffalo Bills respond after getting absolutely, I don't want to say walloped, but they did get beat as a 7.5-point favorite at the hands of the New England Patriots, who are a team that if you did your power rankings 1 to 32, they would probably be down there in the 30 range, at least 28th or worse in the National Football League. But Mac Jones and that offense was getting whatever they wanted against this Bills team. And a lot of it has to do with the injuries that the Bills have suffered on the defensive side of the football for them. But, I mean, when you still have, I don't know where to rank Josh Allen anymore after kind of what's transpired this season, but you definitely have a top wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. You still have James Cook that they drafted in this past draft. So the offensive weapons are there. Maybe they need a second or third wide receiver there, but I mean, this team has been to multiple AFC championship games. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to get over the hump in those games, but they've been a great regular season team. And Rod, let me kick it to you. We'll start here with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, what do you think has been kind of the demise of this team so far this season? Because they have performed well under expectation thus far this season.
I think sometimes when you have that bar set so high for so long that it kind of wears on a team, right? I mean, this is a team that is supposed to go to the Super Bowl every single season. They've got Josh Allen. They've got Stephon Diggs. I mean, they had a pretty solid running game even a couple of seasons ago with Singletary and the myriad of backs that they had in the backfield there, and their defense was always strong as well, right? So this is a team that everybody kept putting into, if not the AFC Championship, then the Super Bowl, or at least in the playoffs. And when you run that hot that long without expectations, sometimes it just gets to a person. When you walk on the field and you're like, I know we're supposed to win this game, and then the other team starts knowing that as well, and they play better to match you as well. It's not that the competition is getting any worse. It's just this team, I think, has been running hot for a long time, and it's starting to show. The cracks in this expectations versus what they're putting out on the field is starting to close. And I think it's getting to this team. And you can see it even as Stephon Diggs, he's not going and having those 300-yard games like he used to have. I mean, now it's 100 yards, which is great. And that's what you're expecting out of Stephon Diggs. But you don't get those explosive games out of him anymore like you used to almost every other week. And, and for Josh Allen, he's throwing interceptions. He's making bad decisions. He's not looking as crisp most of the time. So, I mean, again, like I said, the expectation level is always there. So it's got to get hard to continue to maintain that intensity every week.
Yeah, I think thus far this season they are 0-2 in the division. They've lost. I mean, you could say to what definitely the two worst teams in the division. I'm trying to actually pull up their exact schedule here for the Buffalo
Well, the Jets
Bills.
and the Patriots, they both lost too.
Bear with me for a second. Obviously, so those are the only two division games that they've played, and those are supposed to be, especially without Aaron Rodgers now in that lineup, or sorry, at the quarterback position. Especially in week one, that's a game that they should have probably won. They did, but they beat the Dolphins after the Dolphins came off of that 70-20 victory over the Denver Broncos. So they are sitting at 1-2 in the division. But I think that the schedule, I mean, after the Buccaneers, you take a look at, they have the Bengals in Cincinnati, they have Denver at home, and they have the Jets again, and they go to a very tough stretch here between they go to Philly, they go to Kansas City in back-to-back weeks, welcome Dallas to town, and then they go to LA as we kind of go down their schedule here. Chris, same question, man. What's going on with this Bills team? Is it everything that Rod pretty much mentioned, or is it either something that else is kind of going into the factor here for this Bills performance as far as the season?
Well, I just kind of go first, just kind of hitting on what Rod said. I do think the expectations are kind of catching up with this team. We see that sometimes, and I don't think that any of us thought that this Buffalo team would, be struggling like they are. But go back to the first game of the season. I'm not quite sure if Josh Allen has contacts in, and maybe he just didn't wear him that game. But I know we all probably remember him just slinging the ball across the field in a game that we all thought that they were going to win after Aaron Rodgers went down on opening night. So that one threw me for a loop. And then, losing as a 7.5-point favorite against the god-awful, New England Patriots is kind of head-scratching as well. I think you also have to throw in the trip to London. Like that can be, a tad bit of it.
Sure.
And they did lose against Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a formidable opponent, absolutely. Jacksonville also had a sizable, I would say, rest advantage being in London for 2 weeks, and then Buffalo having to come in after and play them, so they're pretty adjusted to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just to me it's everything that Rod said, and the only other thing besides what I mentioned, the last point, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is just the defense. I think you lose top corner and White, that really hurt. He's on the IR. And it has to be that next man up mentality. And it feels like that just hasn't happened, because anytime Mac Jones can throw the ball down the field and lead a game-winning drive, because that had a chance to be a field goal. And and Belichick was like, no, we're not kicking a field goal. We're going for this thing. And they actually ended up scoring a touchdown. That I think you got to look at yourself in the mirror, especially that defense, and say, what are we not doing right? Like what is not working for me? Anyway, that's how I feel. Watching the Jacksonville game. Last point I'll make: watching the Jacksonville game, Calvin Ridley was getting whatever it was that he wanted. He looked like Calvin Johnson. He looked like Terrell Owens. Just, catch after catch and big time plays. And they lost that game as well. So to me, it feels like they're giving up too many points. And I know that, Josh Allen hasn't been performing as expected, but to me, that's the biggest issue with that defense, along with everything else that Rob mentioned also.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys made. The points that you guys made. Again, it starts with Josh Allen as well. The defense, with all the injuries that they've suffered, it's been a tough road for them as well. But we'll see if that they can bounce back here in this Thursday night football game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think, as far as expectation, have maybe slightly exceeded expectations. But I mean, they're sitting there right there at 300. At 500 so far the season, especially a team that had a win total of 6.5 coming into this season. All right, guys, before we get into our player props here, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. Underdog has just introduced Scorchers. Go 5 for 5 and pick 'em Scorchers. Enjoy a spicy 100x payout. And for a limited time, Underdog is extending their first deposit bonus of up to $500. $100,000 Sundays continue on Underdog Fantasy. 10 lucky players will win $10,000 each. So watch along, make your picks, and then make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $500. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And the NBA is back, and to celebrate, we're giving away an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA-dog to submit a screenshot of you playing NBA Underdog using our promo code SGPN. And one random winner will get a NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA-dog. All right, gentlemen, let's get into our player props here for this Thursday night football game between the Buccaneers and the Bills. Rod, you want to lead us off with your first player prop, my friend?
I sure do. I love to grovel or revel in people's misery. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. But I'm going to actually pick one, a prop that's going to kind of exploit the weaknesses of a couple of these quarterbacks. And there's a bet on BetMGM that has the total combined interceptions between the two quarterbacks. And I'm going to take the over half of an interception. So I think both of them are going to combine for at least one interception in this game. That's at -120 over on BetMGM. And here's the thing. Both of these guys have been throwing interceptions. I mean, one thing Baker Mayfield does very well is throw interceptions. In fact, he's thrown one in the last 4 games that he's played in. So already there, I pretty much see Baker Mayfield throwing an interception in this game. Josh Allen, he's channeled his inner Baker Mayfield the last 3 games and thrown an interception each one of those as well. And both of these defenses are forcing quarterbacks to throw at least one interception per game on the entire season. So there's going to be an interception thrown in this game for sure. And at -120, again, it's not that much juice to pay, knowing that you're probably going to get this anyways. So I'm looking at it one more time because I want to make sure that I got this right. Because I know that I looked at the number and I was like, that can't be right. So yeah, at least one interception be thrown in this game to combine for at -120. We talked about it too. Like I said, it's just a matter of these guys are making mistakes. These Bills are making, I'm sorry, it's 1.5, but even still, I wrote it down wrong. So it's over 1.5. So it's going to be 2 interceptions between these guys. Which I still think is humanly possible because I think both of them are going to throw an interception in this game. Both of these defenses have been opportunistic lately, and both of these quarterbacks have been prone to throw interceptions to the opposition. So, like I said, I mean, it's just a matter of this is going to be a Thursday night sloppy game, in my opinion. Josh Allen is probably going to be trying to make up for just a bad overall game last week, and Baker Mayfield's Baker Mayfield. So, I could probably see Baker throwing 2 in this game to a very pissed off Buffalo defense and still cashing this prop. So -120, over 1.5 combined interceptions for both of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Baker Mayfield, I know, got off to a great start during the regular season for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And they were like, 2-0. Baker, is he the answer? But he's back to the guy that I guess we're kind of used to seeing throughout the season or throughout his career. 4 straight games with at least an interception. Like I mentioned, Josh Allen has been turning the ball over as well, right? And again, I think that going up against a pass rush like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that we talked about it, a pass, tip pass here, a bad throw here. I think that's definitely the possibility. Again, we could also see the realm of possibility of Baker throwing 2 interceptions himself. So now minus 120, I don't hate that number here. Chris, any thoughts on the interception prop here from Rod?
Yeah, I mean, you guys laid it out perfectly, but Baker's gonna bake, and Josh Allen been Allening too, and we hadn't really expected that from him. So, and also, the thing that's been keeping Buffalo, keeping both of these teams in the game has been their defense. So I do expect strong defensive performances. Also, we think about Thursday night football. We think about a short week, which typically lends better to the defense than the offense that doesn't really get those extra days to kind of game plan. So I would play this as well. Two interceptions between the both of them when one of them could throw 2 at minus 120 for sure.
Chris, take us through the player prop number 1, my man. What do you got?
Also, okay, so staying on the quarterback realm, I'm looking at Josh Allen, and I actually like his pass yards to go over. I just look at everything from Tampa Bay, and they have a run stopping defense first, right? We also, I think Rob mentioned it, like they'll probably be pissed off. They're not in a really good space. Their loss last week to the New England Patriots on Sunday was actually the third biggest loss as a favorite this season, a 7.5-point favorite. So a couple things I looked at. Each competent, like not each quarterback, but each competent quarterback that's faced this Buccaneers defense, they've gone over 260 yards passing. You look at week 1, it was Kirk Cousins. He threw for 344, 277 by Jalen Hurts. And then, of course, Jared Goff hit him for 353. So those are the competent quarterbacks on that list. I'm not going to include all the quarterbacks, but I would include Allen. I would include Josh Allen in that category. Josh Allen himself, he's actually passed for 260 in 3 of his last 5 games. And I do expect the Bucs, like I said, to kind of focus on stopping the run. That's where the strength of this defense is. Opponents are passing the ball a lot of times. They're passing for a lot of yards. I want to say like 250, 247. So I think Josh Allen, especially in a bounce back spot against this defense, just kind of slings the ball around. Also, you'll have all his weapons outside of Dawson Knox, of course, who's injured. And I'll talk a little bit more about a player prop that I like in that category. But Jared Allen to go over 255. I think 255.5. I do like this number, and I expect him to, be able to get it done through the air this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you mentioned it, like the quarterbacks that the Buccaneers defense have faced, guys like Kirk Cousins, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, even Desmond Ridder last week had 250 passing yards only on 19 completions. So I can definitely see that this team comes out motivated, led by their quarterback Josh Allen, to get over this number. And again, like you mentioned, I think the key point in the handicap here is for the listeners is that this Buccaneers defense, their strength over the past several seasons has been their rush defense, or maybe the pass defense has not been very good. And I'll get to that in my first player prop here in a second. And Rod, thoughts on this prop for Josh Allen passing yards?
I like how you said competent quarterbacks, because it definitely is a distinction you have to make, because a lot of times when you're facing quarterbacks, it's no two are the same. Like you could face a Josh Allen or you could face a Baker Mayfield, right? So there's not a comparison between them sometimes. So I like that. I definitely back you on this one as well, because I think, again, for Tampa, they're allowing a lot of yards in the air. The ground, not so much. So I think the Bills are going to come out slinging, and it's going to be Josh Allen that has to win this game for them.
All right, getting over to my first player prop here. I know Chris mentioned that he likes a Josh Allen to throw the football. Well, somebody's got to catch those footballs, and I'm looking at Stephon Diggs here to go over 85.5 receiving yards in this game. And you just take a look at number 1, the Buccaneers pass defense has allowed 100 yard receiver in every game this season, except for one game, which was last week against the Atlanta Falcons, where the leading receiver was Drake London. But prior to that, you go back to week 1, Justin Jefferson, 150 receiving yards, DJ Moore, 104, AJ Brown, 131, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 124. And like we mentioned, now you're getting the task of having to defend a pretty pissed off Bills team, which is going to be led by Stephon Diggs. And over the last 3 weeks, Stephon Diggs has a total of 39 targets from Josh Allen. And Diggs has also gone over this projection of 85.5 receiving yards in 5 out of the 7 games this season. Those 5 games, I believe all 5 of those games, he went at least 100 yards. So what I did is I played obviously the over 85.5, but I'm also going to ladder this up to 100 plus as well. That's at plus 135 currently over on DraftKings. So I'm expecting a big day from Stephon, or big night, I should say, from Stephon Diggs catching the football from Mr. Josh Allen here, Chris.
Man, if you laid this one out perfect, I don't really think there's anything else for me to add. I already talked about how bad the defense was, against the pass. And like I said, I got a player prop that I'm looking to attack this defense as well. But I mean, we mentioned it from like from a game script perspective. We think we have the script in this one, and it should be that they bounce back at home. Short week for the defense. No way I could talk you off of this one, and playing it at 100 plus to get some plus money. Definitely in line as well.
Rod, any thoughts on Stephon Diggs?
I tell you what, he does have a 174-yard game against Tampa Bay. Of course, he was a member of the Vikings at that point, but he has blown up for 174 yards. So give me all the Stephon Diggs yards. And honestly, too, I mean, it has to be on him. He's far and away the receiving leader on this team. So it really does have to come from him. And if they're going to win this game in any manner, again, he's going to have to play a big part in it. So.
All right, before we get over to round 2 of our player props, let me tell everyone about Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, Chris, take us over to player prop number 2, my man. What do you got?
All right, so let's keep with that same theme. If you went Stephon Diggs, which I can't talk you off, I went Dalton Kincaid. I like Kincaid a lot this week. His line is, it's 33 and I'm sorry, not 33. It's 35.5. That's the lowest one I saw, minus 125. But you could take this at 30. If you don't want to pay the juice, you could take it at 37.5, 30. There's some 38s out there as well. This is a situational play, right? We already talked about this team probably being fired up. Hopefully they come out fired up. If not, then something's wrong. We're going to have to start figuring out what's wrong, what's really going on. We'll have a much longer conversation about this Buffalo Bills team next week. But yeah, situational spot. We expect them to be fired up. You look at what we just kind of talked about, laid it out, how good this defense is against the rush. They're not really good against the pass. So last week, you look at what Dawson Knox was able to do. He actually saw 8 receptions, which was the second highest. Right behind your guy, Stephon Diggs, finished with 75 yards receiving in that game as well. And it was also the game, like we talked about, Dawson Knox went down. Dawson Knox is now in the IR. He's going to be out for some time and needs some surgery as well. So I do think that this is a role that he steps into. And he already kind of did it last week. We saw Dawson Knox only finish with 1 catch last week. I want to say it was for 10 yards. And Mr. Kincaid stepped up. So I think he does in this situation as well. Another thing I went back and looked at was just tight ends. Against the Tampa Bay defense, and they've actually allowed 4 of the 7 tight ends that they faced. Well, 4 tight ends in the 7 weeks that they faced that they've been playing to actually finish with over 40 yards or more. So I love this spot. You look at, I'm not going to go through all the quarterbacks, but all the tight ends, but all of the quarterbacks, the competent ones, like I mentioned earlier, actually, were able to get their tight ends over this 40 number. So that's Kirk Cousins, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, and Desmond Ridder actually as well. And I wouldn't put him on the competent list, but so I like the spot, bounce back spot. Going to be getting a little bit increased volume as well. So Dalton Kincaid to go over 35.5, 37.5, whatever that number is, I would play it up to about 41.5.
Yeah, I was looking at I was trying to find the receptions on him for this prop as well. I just couldn't find it, but I wholeheartedly agree that you're going to see an increase in targets, number one, for Dalton Kincaid here as well, obviously with the injury to Dawson Knox. So I'm right there with you, Chris. I love this for Dalton Kincaid. Rod, any thoughts on Dalton Kincaid here?
Well, especially because he had 8 targets last week, 8 receptions, so he caught all of them. He's one of those guys where the name popped up, and all of a sudden you're running to the waiver wire if you're a fantasy manager if you don't already have him, because like you said, with Dawson Knox being out, Stephon Diggs can shoulder the load. Sure, he's good enough to do that, but I think Josh Allen's going to need Kincaid to get through this game as well. And as far as Bills and tight ends, that they love to target their tight ends, right? Josh Allen loves him some Dawson Knox. So Kincaid's the next guy to step up. He did it last week. I think the number, I got it at 40, but I think I like it as low as 35. Like you said, that's an easy number to clear, 35 for sure. He's done it twice already, even with Knox in it, so I like it.
All right, Rod, take us over to player prop number 2, man. What do you got?
All right, well, so if I think that one of these guys is going to throw an interception, or I think both of these guys are going to throw an interception, then I'm going to have to take somebody to catch that interception. And I like Micah Hyde. His number is at over 1.5. I'm sorry, at a half an interception. So just for him to get an interception at all. The reason I'm going with Hyde out of all of this, he's got, but it's a plus 625 for him to get an interception in this game. Now, I realize that he hasn't necessarily gotten an interception in a while, right? He started out the season with 2 interceptions, looked fantastic, and hasn't really been part of that at all. But I think he's too good of a player to go this long without getting an interception. And he's licking his chops against a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. Like I said, he was throwing an interception in every single game so far over the last 4 games. So for a guy like Micah Hyde, he's like, I've got to get back on this. I've got to get back on the snide. He's only, like I said, got 1 interception so far. 2 interceptions so far this season. And they came against Miami and Washington. So he picked off Tua, right? Which is a pretty good feat in and of itself. So like I said, at 625, this is almost like a first touchdown prop. You just take it because somebody's going to have to catch this interception. You can break it up across a couple different people if you really want to, but I think Micah Hyde is probably my best choice to catch that pass from Baker Mayfield this week.
Especially with like we mentioned, an injured secondary for this Bills team. Like Micah Hyde's that leader now, right? And again, more times than not, he's been a ball hawk throughout his career. And like you mentioned, the first 2 weeks he had an interception. So it's fair game when you're going up against a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. Again, this might be a Baker Mayfield game where we see he throws 3 interceptions. And unfortunately for your prop, hopefully it's Micah Hyde that picks off one of those for this Thursday night football game. Chris, any thoughts on that?
I mean, well, I really love Baker to throw an interception or 2. So somebody's got to catch it is what sticks out first and foremost. I think Rod did a really good job, excellent job of, this is one where, like Rod said, it's not you take it off the pure value alone, right? I mean, you're getting 6.5 to 1. Definitely feels like it's worth the sprinkle. So couldn't talk right off this one.
All right. For my next player prop, I'm going to go over to the running back for the Buffalo Bills. I'm taking James Cook to go over 18.5 receiving yards here for this game. So we talked a lot over the past several seasons that it's kind of been a running back carousel for the Buffalo Bills, or they just haven't gotten a lot of production out of it, right? I know you've had the Devin Singletaries of the world and things like that over the past several seasons, but we take a look at the season alone, right? Cook has gone over this projection for the 7 games for the Bills, but I think the handicap that I really stood out to me is the amount of yards that the Buccaneers defense is allowing through the air to the running back position. Or so over the course of the season, the Buccaneers have allowed opposing running backs to average, 38.5 receiving yards per game. And the Bucs have allowed every running back group to go over this projection, except for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we know, at least for the Buffalo Bills, it's James Cook. Damian Harris is injured. And he's going to get majority of the snaps, the targets, and the snap counts for that backfield as well for this Buffalo Bills backfield. So I'm expecting him to get targets again. He's averaging about 3 per game, and he makes the most of it as well as James Cook. So 18.5, I thought this number was a little conservative. I'll take James Cook over 18.5 receiving yards here, Rod.
Yeah, and for James Cook, obviously he's not been explosive in the running game. It isn't like he's putting up gigantic numbers in the rushing attack, and I think they do need to throw this ball a little more because, like I said, Tampa's actually got a pretty sneaky good run defense, and it's not as if they're giving up a ton of yards on the ground. It'll be a rough go for Cook on the ground, so I think a couple of swing passes, and he's going to break this for sure. And Munaf, we've talked about this time and time again, too, where it's like, for these guys, for these running backs, it really only takes a couple of broken tackles for them to get even over this on one catch.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, thoughts on James Cook here?
Yeah, I like it. I think Rod mentioned it, but they do a really good job of slowing down the rush, in my opinion. So I do think it'll be a lot of opportunities for him to be able to get some catches out the backfield. You go in and just kind of look at some of the receiving numbers for running backs that his defense has faced, and they're giving it up. I see, 6 receptions, 15 receptions, 4, and even if it's not the receptions, it's the yards, right? They're giving up at least 30 yards to pretty much everybody that's on this list. Some 50-yard guys in here as well. So I could not talk you off of this one,
All right, let's get over to our third round of player props here. Rod, why don't you lead us off?
I'm going to pick on the other tight end on the other side of the ball, Cade Otton. Oh my gosh, this guy. His number right now is set at 27.5. I'm still taking the under on this one. I understand it and I get it that's such a gigantically low number. And you go, well, if anybody with a pulse can pretty much get you 27.5 receiving yards, well, unfortunately, Cade Polton's pulse is not necessarily all that strong. Yeah, he got it for you in last week. He got you 43 yards. That's great. But before that, 15, 13, 16. Okay, he got you 41 yards against the Bears. That's the Bears. But 19 in week 1. In all but 2 weeks, he has been below 20 yards even, not even 27, 20 yards. So that just tells me right there that as much as you want Cade Otton to be a thing, Cade Otton is not a thing. And at 27.5 yards, it seems like an easy number to get to. But listen, I know Pharaoh Brown got 51 against them last week. Hunter Henry even pitched in for 27. But look, they held Darren Waller to 43 yards. Now, granted, that's over this 27-yard mark, but that's Darren Waller. That's like the number 1 receiving option on the Giants, and they held him basically to 43 yards. So that's almost a win. That's almost keeping a third tier tight end to 27 yards for sure. Evan Ingram had 28, so barely got anything there. Tyler Conklin had 2. Austin Hooper had 20. So they've been pretty good against the tight end position, and they've faced much stronger tight end competition than Cade Otton. So I think last week was an anomaly. His 5 catches for 6 targets was an anomaly. I think we're going to see more of the 3 catches for 13-yard game than we are this 5 for 43 this week. So give me Cade Otton under 27.5 receiving yards on this game.
I was looking at Cade Otton's on his receptions to go over just because the tight end position the Bills tight end position has given up those receptions to those teams. I just couldn't find it, but I think that for the Bills and for the Buccaneers here, I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb at that, especially at that tight end position, right? So I definitely can get behind this for the Buccaneers. Again, when you talk about this offense, for the casual fan, Cade Otton is the first name that comes to mind. It's Mike Evans, it's Chris Godwin, it's maybe even Rashid White as well, right? So yeah, definitely can get behind this as well. Chris, any thoughts on this player prop form, Rod, on Cade Otton?
Not much. I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is, and Rod kind of mentioned this, the anomaly of last week, what goes up must come down. So I would say, we see some regression to the mean this week. And, in a game where we don't expect a lot from Baker Mayfield, and we expect this defense to play a lot better after giving up so many points last week against to Mac Jones. So I like this one as well.
All right, Chris, take us over to player prop number 3, man. What do you got?
So I actually got an under as well, and I'm going to the opposite side of same side of the ball. And I'm looking at Rachaad White to go under. This was one that I gave out. I think I want to say 2 weeks ago when they were playing against the Detroit Lions. And it's just it's a couple of different things. One, he's just having a pretty terrible season right now. He's rushing for just 3.2 yards per carry and only has more than the number right now, which is 48 in 2 of the 6 games. So he's only hitting this number. He's only going over in 33% of his games and staying under 66% of the games so far. Tampa Bay actually ranks bottom 10 in pretty much every rush statistical category: yards per rush, rushing attempts per game, and yards per game. And I do expect Buffalo to force Baker to beat them, like we kind of talked about, at home in a bounce back spot. Buffalo has a lot to prove, man. They really have a lot to prove, especially with some of the questionable games, losing outright to Jacksonville, barely beating the Giants 2 weeks ago as 14-point favorites there. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the third biggest loss as a favorite so far this season against New England. So I'm pretty sure you want to get that bad taste out your mouth. You typically do that, and the good teams do that by stopping the run first. That way the defense is they make the offense a lot more predictable, the opposing offense a lot more predictable. So I think we see that. I think they slow the run down, make Baker have to beat you, and Rachaad White should be able to stay under. I don't think he gets 50 yards, and I'm comfortable taking him, at 47 and to stay under the 47.5 number as well.
I think the game plan also for the Buccaneers, or sorry, for the Bills, defense should be. I know the defense has been bad, but it's Baker Mayfield at the same time as well, right? Like do you really trust Baker after the past several weeks that he hasn't been very, I guess, competent quarterback to beat you? I'm not sure I can get there. So I think it just goes hand in hand right there. Right? Again, we're talking about game script. I think this prop goes right there in hand in hand. Rod, any thoughts on this player prop from Chris?
Yeah, and again, I don't think that Rachaad White is going to be a factor at all in this game. He hasn't necessarily been a factor in many games this season at all. And for him, this rushing, and in fact, the news articles have really kind of led you to get into that conclusion as well, where Baker's like, listen, we're not a run first team. We definitely are a passing team, and unfortunately, they're a passing team, which means it falls on him. And as far as the league catching up with them too, I mean, you got to figure they were gearing up Tom Brady for the last 3 seasons or 4 seasons, right? I mean, it's the shift gears to go now to Baker Mayfield. The league was probably like, well, okay, it's Baker Mayfield, and took him for granted. And then he kind of jumped out to a 3-1 lead, and then they were like, oh wait, shit, never mind. It's Baker Mayfield. We're going to have to game plan for him now, for real. And so they have, and you see what happens.
Yeah. All right, for my last player prop here, I am going to go to a kicking prop here. I think this is a buy low situation for me. Tyler Bass over 1.5 field goals made here. It's at minus 105. And I know over the last several weeks here, he's only made 1 field goal over the last 3 weeks here. But if you take a look what the kickers have done against his Buccaneers defense, which kind of tells me that the Buccaneers red zone defense has been pretty solid thus far this season. So over the last 4 weeks, opposing kickers have made at least 2 field goals, and over the last 4 weeks, opposing kickers have made at least 3 field goals against the Buccaneers. So I think a buy low situation here, minus 105. For the Bills, I think they want to get out with a victory in this game, just because to get that sour taste out of the mouth, what happened last week against the Buccaneers, against the Patriots. So for the Bills, I think that if the opportunity presents himself to take the points, I think they're going to take them. But also, it kind of goes into the fact that do the Bills think that the Buccaneers are going to be able to put up points to keep up with the scoring that the Bills may do? So asking Tyler Bass to get 2 field goals here, I don't think is going to be a monumental task. So I'll take the over 1.5 field goals made for Tyler Bass at minus 105, currently over on DraftKings here, Rod.
I love me some kicker props. So, and Tyler Bass is one of the best. So I think this team will put up points. And really what could ultimately happen too is that they get up so much in the third quarter or somewhere in the fourth quarter that if they drive down, they're not necessarily trying as hard to get a touchdown. So their drive may get stalled at the 20 or, the 25, and then out comes Tyler Bass to kick a second field goal late in the game, just because you're going to put points on the board. You don't want to leave points out there. So yeah, this could come in a garbage time situation just as much as it could come in a meaningful game situation as well.
Chris, any thoughts on Tyler Bass?
Yep, take the over, like you said. that is the thought. I do expect this team to be able to move the ball. We expect them to bounce back, like we've been kind of talking about throughout the entirety of this episode. You go in and just kind of look at Tampa Bay's just defense in general, and I'm specifically their opponent red zone scoring, and they're actually pretty good. So that's what kind of keeps them in games, is their ability to be able to kind of limit you in the red zone. So maybe they struggle in that category, and it wouldn't affect me any, because I'm not taking anybody to catch a lot of passes. Not catch a lot of passes, but catch in touchdowns for Buffalo in this Thursday night game. So I like it. I think Bass potentially hits 3 field goals in this game.
All right, let's get over to touchdown scorer prop bets for this Thursday night football game. Rod, you want to lead us off with your touchdown scorer?
So I think somebody's going to score at least 1 touchdown for Tampa Bay. I think that is within the realm of possibility. And really, the only guy that's been scoring touchdowns for Tampa Bay is Mike Evans. So you could do the anytime TD score for him. It's still at plus 175, which I find to be kind of crazy, considering that he's the one with the most touchdowns on the season for Tampa Bay. He's got 4 receiving touchdowns. The next best guy on the list is Trey Palmer with 2. K. Dotton does have 1 as well. And it's like, well, okay, maybe rushing touchdowns could be. No, well, listen, Rachaad White's the only one with a rushing touchdown this season. One rushing touchdown. So if you want to talk about, like, Mike Evans almost has as many touchdowns by himself as the rest of the team. So I'm telling you, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do score a touchdown, it's gonna be Mike Evans that scores this touchdown, because that's just the way it's been going for them lately. And like I said, at plus money, I still don't believe. I mean, when you've got guys that are at minus money right now to score a touchdown, just 1, getting a guy like Mike Evans at plus 175, I don't think you can pass this up. The only way that he's going to foil you on this prop is if he doesn't score a touchdown at all, which I wouldn't be surprised if it happened that way. But by the same token, he did score a touchdown last week against the Falcons. So he's only gone 2 games this season not scoring a touchdown. I like plus money for Mike Evans to get in the end zone this week.
Yeah, I mean, at plus 175 for a guy that's been more consistent than not for this offense, I think that's definitely value there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At plus 175, I do not hate that. Chris, touchdown scores for this week.
So piggybacking off Rod, I like Mike Evans as well. Baker just does this thing where he drops back in the pocket and just throws the ball up to him. Mike Evans goes and catches it. You actually can get him at plus 210 if you have access to PointsBet. And that's probably the only player that I would look at. I think it may be worth the sprinkle for Baker to get in the Mayfield. For Baker to get in the end zone. Just because the odds are nice. You can actually get him at 8.5 to 1. So plus 850 for Baker Mayfield to score a touchdown. And Rod just kind of mentioned, and I went back and looked at it as well. Rachaad White has their only rushing touchdown. Like that's absolutely insane. They rushed the ball 153 times this season and have 1 rushing touchdown. So just because the odds are, there, I would probably put a 10th of a unit, maybe, 15th of a unit, not anything big, but those are the only 2 guys I think have the potential to score, unless something fluky happens, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On the opposite side, I actually like Josh Allen to get in the end zone. You can get him at plus 220. He has 4 rushing touchdowns already this season. And we know all it takes is a scramble for him, 15 yards out, 10 yards out, maybe even 20 yards out. And Josh Allen can get in the end zone as well. So I like Josh Allen. Josh Allen plus 220. Like Rod said, looking at Mike Evans at plus 210. Those would be my favorite 2 guys. Sprinkle on Baker Mayfield at plus 850.
I like that. All right, for mine, I think this is gonna be a big Stephon Diggs week, like I mentioned. I'm gonna go with him to score 2 touchdowns. That's at plus 450. Currently over on DraftKings. Again, like I mentioned, this secondary for the Buccaneers has not been very good, and the amount of targets that Stephon Diggs gets, especially, in the red zone area. I think that he's more than capable of getting 2 touchdowns for this Buffalo Bills offense. Also, like Dalton Kincaid at 2-1 to find it. I know, Chris, you're high on him this week, especially since Dawson Knox has gone down for this offense. I know Josh Allen likes to find those big targets in the red zone or in the red zone, I should say. So at 2-1, I don't hate that. I also agree about Mike Evans. I just don't see a world where it could be another score for this Tampa Bay team, but getting Mike Evans anywhere from plus 175, but also like Chris mentioned, all the way up to plus 210. There is definitely some value there for Mike Evans to find the end zone. Again, he's a big red zone target as well for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So co-sign on Mike Evans as well. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap up this show with our best bets for this Thursday night football game. Rod, why don't you lead us off?
So I'm going to go with the total combined interceptions at 1.5. I think, like I said, both of these quarterbacks have been definitely not their best selves. And Baker Mayfield, well, maybe he has. I don't know. But I know Josh Allen has not been his best self lately. So interceptions have been the name of the game for these guys and these defenses. So it's a Thursday night game. These always get sloppy. These always get hard to watch. So I think you can have both of them walk away with an interception. I think you can have Baker walk away with 2. I don't know. But at minus 120, I know it's juiced, but it's pretty much juiced for a good reason. And it's not juiced that much. So give me their total combined interceptions at 1.5 rather.
Love it. Chris, best bet.
Best bet is the situational guy for me. The situational guy happens to be Dalton Kincaid this week. So I like him. I like him a lot in this spot. Receiving yards only at 35.5, 36.5, 37.5. I like all of those numbers. Like I said, I would play it up to 40. And, it's just ample opportunity. I expect some of the same opportunity that he saw last week where he had 8 catches. This defense is really good against the rush. So I do think that Josh Allen wants to bounce back and have a better game than he did last week. And you get a bigger role for Kincaid in this spot. And it could be a buy low spot because we know that Dawson Knox is not going to be back next week or for the foreseeable future. So this number could creep up just a tad bit higher next week. So it does make me feel like I'm getting a bit of a discount with what the potential is in this spot.
Yeah, love it, man. All right, for my best bet, I got to go with Stephon Diggs. I mentioned it that the Buccaneers secondary and their pass defense has given up at least 100-yard receiver to every single opposing team this season, except last week, which was the Atlanta Falcons. And now I mentioned, you have now Stephon Diggs and what should be a motivated Bills team to get that sour taste out of their mouth of what transpired last week against a divisional rival in the New England Patriots. I know it's a short week. They're at home. I do like the spot here for the Buffalo Bills and Stephon Diggs to have a big week this week in this Thursday night football game. So best bet for me, over 85.5 receiving yards for Stephon Diggs. I would ladder this up as well. 100 plus was around plus 135. We're going to get all the way up to plus 125. You can get definitely some nicer odds on that as well. So Stephon Diggs over 85.5 receiving yards. Best bet for me. All right, gentlemen, that is going to do it for this edition of the Propcast here on the NFL Gambling Podcast as well. Thursday night football is in week 8 already. I can't believe I'm saying that. Week 8 already for the NFL. But Rod, any parting thoughts before we get out of here, my friend?
No, I actually hope that Stephon Diggs does go off this week because I've got a combined with him and Mike Evans for 156 yards. So hopefully Stephon Diggs just takes care of that by himself, and all Mike Evans has to do is catch a 20-yard pass, and we're good. But listen, we're coming down to the end of the NASCAR season, last couple of races. So I'm going to be able to catch a breather. But like I said, that means I get to focus 1,000% on the NFL, which is always a good thing to do. But make sure you catch the last couple races with us if you haven't already in the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. F1 still got some time to go. We got 4 races left there, so still making money over there as well. They're in Mexico City this week, so catch the F1 Gambling Podcast as well. And catch some more of my props on Sportsbook Review if you want to go deeper into this Thursday night game.
There we go. Chris, anything else you want to mention, my friend, before we get out of here?
Nah, man. Love doing the show with you guys. I'm glad that we all aligned. It definitely, provides some confidence in the players that we're liking. So best of luck to everyone. Enjoy the game and check me out over on X. Myself, I'm doing a lot of NBA stuff as the season kind of ramps up. So definitely check me out over there. Crispy Cap and 2 P's, 2 N's. Appreciate you guys as always, and looking forward to the weekly show that we're going to do where we give out some more props for the rest of the games this week.
Yeah, 100%. We'll be back later this week, probably Friday as usual, to get into our NFL Week 8 Sunday game props as well. So look out for us then. Make sure to follow Rod on X at RJ Villagomez. You can follow Chris on X as well at Crispy Cabin. 2 P's, 2 N's. And again, you can follow me on X at SportsNerd824. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.